What started with a YouTube video and a hashtag has now resulted in the resignation of the headmaster at Boston Latin School.
Hashtag Black at BLS when your white peers are using Twitter and Facebook to put out racial slurs and negative things about students of color, and you print out the tweets and give them to your headmaster in a binder, and then she does nothing about it. Hashtag Black at BLS.
Maggie Noel and Kylie Webster-Cazot released this video on Martin Luther King Jr. Day after feeling frustrated by what they felt was a lack of concern about an unwelcoming atmosphere at the nation's oldest public school, and that was not taken seriously by headmaster Lynn Mooney Tata. Yesterday, Boston School Superintendent Tommy Chang announced that Tata is stepping down as 2 investigations continue into how Boston Latin's administration handled complaints by minority students.
Dr. Tata has always been committed to the school. She has demonstrated that as a student, as an assistant headmaster.
But deep wounds remain and will be a challenge for a new headmaster. Consider 8.5% of the students at Boston Latin are African American, compared to 32.4% district-wide. Latino students make up 11.6% of the student body, compared to 41.5% across all Boston public schools. As school prepares to get out for the summer, one student had this reaction to the headmaster's sudden resignation.
It's something that's been around all year. I mean, the Black at BLS thing was definitely probably an influence, and I mean, it's change, and change is always a good thing, and we're just changing along with the rest of the community.
Dr. Mooney Tata released a statement saying she believes her decision was in the best interest of the students and the school. Joining me to discuss are Rasan Hall, director of the Racial Justice Center at the ACLU of Massachusetts and the attorney for one of the Latin school families, Rachel Meiselman, a 1989 graduate of Boston Latin, and Laz Vekaritas, an alum from the class of 1986 and currently a parent. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So are any of you surprised that Lynn Mooney Tata, after everything that transpired over the past few months, that she decided to walk away?
I'm certainly surprised. One of the responses that we heard from the district was that she would not be removed. There were no conversations about her being removed or that she would resign. And so from an advocacy standpoint, certainly there were some of us who were asking for her removal. There were some who made no comments on the position. But to hear it happen at the end of the school year, it certainly left us very surprised.
Before we go to Rachel and Laz, were you one of the people who was asking for her removal?
The ACLU did not take a position on her removal, but we were very adamant that there needed to be change within the Boston Latin School around issues of dealing with race and the racial climate there.
Rachel, did you see this coming?
Unfortunately, yes, I did. And I have to say that I'm devastated that it actually happened. It was something that, again, it didn't greatly surprise me, but I'm just sad it came to pass because I think she's a tremendous educator. And to echo Boston City Councilor Matt O'Malley, who's been consistently supportive, it's a tremendous loss to the BLS community.
Before the camera started rolling, you, I think, said that your heart was broken when this happened?
That is correct. I have to say that when I was at Boston Latin School, I had an incident happen to me. And I don't want to minimize the hurt or the experiences that anyone else might have had, but I had something happen to me right at school. My locker was vandalized, and at the time I was a senior applying to colleges, and losers had been written on my locker. So I'm an '80s child, and you see losers, and that's a huge insult, and I'm just a kid. And I said to myself, rationalizing, well, that's plural, and I'm just one person, so it can't be me. And so I took a pen and I etched it out. Went back to my locker later on in the day, and loser had been written, and in small letters, Black Jew. On a subsequent occasion, there were pennies stuck in the grids of my locker. Now, this is something I have really kept close. I've remained tight-lipped, closed-mouthed about. But in light of what has happened, I feel compelled to speak out because I can tell you that I received tremendous support from the administration. Malcolm Flynn, Assistant Headmaster Flynn, he's been there for 52 years now, I believe. And, so of course he was there at the time. So you had him at the time he was teaching. the headmaster, Mr. Konopasis, Mr. C, as we call him, immediately called an assembly. And just throughout the rest of the year, I knew that if I had a problem, if there was something amiss, if I just needed to go in and talk, they were there for me. So, again, I don't want to challenge or belittle anyone else's feelings.
But that's the experience that you
Correct.
had. Yeah. Les, let me ask you, from the vantage point of a parent, and can you share what grade your child or children are currently in at BLS?
So I currently have a ninth grader. He just finished ninth grade, and I have a daughter who's going to be in the seventh grade very shortly, I guess, in this fall. So.
What did your ninth grade child have to say about this news when they heard it?
I think everyone was sort of expecting something to happen, and unbeknownst to me, I'm just a parent, I suppose. But there's been a fair amount of discussion, for the last few months about what's going on. I think the feedback that I've gotten from him has been that some of the programs have been really good. And
You're talking about programs to raise awareness of potential racial issues at the school?
And but it felt, at least from his perspective, that there's still a lot of unrest. And so, I don't know that he's particularly happy about it. I don't know that he knows that it affects him all that much, because his day-to-day life doesn't change all that much when the headmaster goes away. But I think everyone has been expecting something.
Rasan, have you had a chance to speak with the family that you represent about their reaction to this news?
Yeah, we represent the Britton family, whose daughter was a victim of a racial slur and threat. There was a young man in her class who held a cord in his hand and called her the N-word and said, "I should lynch you." She went to the administrators, and they did nothing about it. And on top of that, the administration never notified her parents, and it wasn't until later that when there were subsequent incidents that the administration began to do something about it. And so, to Rachel's point, the experience that you had, which was very unfortunate, was addressed, and was addressed swiftly and immediately, and you felt embraced and supported, whereas my client's child did not have that same experience. And the young ladies, Maggie and Kylie, who raised some concerns that went beyond just what was tweeted on social media, didn't have that feeling of being supported either.
I mean, to be fair, to play devil's advocate, I feel like we're living in very different times. And I feel like overtures and policies and measures, steps that might have been taken when I was in school might be considered unacceptable now. I think people have maybe different goalposts. They have different perspectives, and they're looking for something else.
When you say that, I got to ask you what you mean, because it seems to me like today it would be just as appropriate too if a white student says to an African-American student, I'm going to lynch you with this, and uses the N-word, just as appropriate now to call a school-wide assembly as it would have been back in the 80s. You and I are about the same age. So why not do that in BLS today?
I mean, I can't speak to the decision that Lynn Mooney Tata had, but the reason why I brought in what is a very personal experience is because she was around at that same time. So she's class of 86, of course she's an alumna. And again, assistant headmaster Malcolm Flynn, he was there as well at the time. And I think that, maybe people have different ways of dealing with it. I mean, racism, discrimination, feelings of unease. So I don't want to say that what she did wasn't right, but what I'm saying is that this is how it was dealt with when I was the victim of this.
Got it.
And I don't know if had that happened, if these students would have been satisfied.
Well, we'll never know, I guess. Laz, let me ask you, as someone who has one child in BLS and another one coming into BLS, does this give you any pause at all about having your children complete their formative public education years? I guess they may go to a public higher ed school, but does it give you any pause about keeping them there?
Not at all, not for the racial climate. I have not gotten any feedback from my son that suggests that the racial climate is really bad. I think that there have been bullying incidents that he's even been a part of, but for the most part, I would echo what was said before, that that they've been swiftly taken care of, very judiciously, and I think very much to his satisfaction as well. So in fact, Malcolm Flynn, he's the person that does a lot of the disciplinary things, as I understand it. In the case of your client, I think Malcolm Flynn may have not been present when the incident occurred.
I'm glad that
and I think there's something to be said about that.
I'm glad you mentioned that. One thing that I should ask you, and I actually don't know the answer, is was Lynn Mooney Tata aware of the incident?
Yes, she was absolutely aware. She was aware shortly after the incident happened. She was aware when my client found out about it and called her about it. And she was
spoke with her
aware,
directly?
Yes, because at the time I believe she was either a trustee or still actively involved as an alum. And she was aware when there was a subsequent bullying incident the following school year. So she was certainly aware.
All right, let me
As
close.
was Mr. Flynn.
I wish we had several more minutes. We actually have to wrap up. But from Rasan to you, Rachel, to you, Laz, advice for whoever replaces Lynn Mooney Tata.
I think that whoever replaces her has to have an open and embracing and affirming, inclusive perspective about what needs to happen moving forward.
Rachel?
I think that, with all due respect, I think the person needs to, like Lynn Mooney Tata did, uphold the values of the school. I feel like a lot of other things are going on right now.
Okay, Laz?
I will echo that the school has an aura of high academic standards, and those have to be upheld, and that's first and foremost. But secondly, you have to keep in mind that a lot of the funding for that school is given to it by alumni. And this person has an almost impossible job of reaching out to alumni as well.
All right.
So,
Laz Vekaritas, Rachel Mazelman, Rasan Hall, thank you all.
Thank you.